We have 2 minutes.
I have no clue. I know it's, they did, so I saw some pictures. Yeah, and I don't know, because I wasn't expecting her back till Tuesday, maybe Wednesday or so. Strange.
I'm trying to find that email I sent you.
Oh, the little talk off for it.
Yeah, because I can't send it to my Cleveland County email because I can't, for whatever reason, I can't pull up my personal one here.
Okay. I can have a little time between this meeting.
Yeah, I just want to refresh myself on my records. There's Jean making the grand entrance at the last second.
She wasn't supposed to even be here, so this is a very shocking development.
That's true, actually, Jean. We gave your seat away since you weren't
Yeah.
supposed to be here. Go away. We gave your seat away.
All the way from Nebraska, that's why I'm late.
What are you doing here?
The weather was bad, so I took a different route, got me home early.
All right. Well, I'm glad. Yes.
And let's wait for it to turn over. Is Gary?
It is 9:30.
Is Gary called in?
They called 10.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. Supervisor Watson, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I would like to start with the invocation. Can I introduce Pastor Dave Hodgsons of the Connection Point Church? Pastor.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to open this meeting. Let's pray. Father, I do thank you so very much for the opportunity we have to come before you. You are the ultimate sovereign of the universe. You rule and reign above all others. However, I thank you that we can come before you and we can look to you for wisdom and guidance and discernment in the making of decisions. And Lord, this day as this Board of Supervisors of the Mohave County have gathered together and others have joined them for this meeting, I do ask, Lord, that you would give the wisdom that is needed. I pray for insight, and I pray for true guidance in the decision-making processes. I ask, Lord, that this meeting would be one that is open to viewpoints that may differ from one another, so that together a true, clear picture of what the issues really are can come to light. For these supervisors, Lord, I realize that though you are the ultimate sovereign, you rule above all others, you have ordained human government, and these who sit in these seats and function as supervisors have a huge responsibility. I ask, Lord, that you would open their eyes and help them to recognize that the responsibility they have to protect and to provide justice and fairness in the process is one that indeed they will give an account before you. So, Father, that they would look to you, that they would trust you, and they would allow you to guide them. That this Mohave County would be one in which the best decisions are made for all involved. Obviously, Lord, we realize that there are times when not everybody gets things to happen just the way they'd like. But Father, I do pray for a county that functions with an appreciation of others and a protection of others. And so, Lord, with all the things that are to be discussed today, I do pray for your guidance. We thank you that we can look to you and trust you. And thank you that you're here in the midst as we look to you and trust you. And so I commit this meeting to you and all the discussions that will take place. May you rule, may you guide, may you direct, so that indeed we come to the very best decisions possible for this county. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Supervisor Johnson, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion for an executive session to be held on June 1st, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. or at the conclusion of the regular meeting, whichever is later, for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS Section 38-431.03, subsections A, subsections 3 and 4, to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 1, discussion of pending and contemplated litigation claims and demands. I believe we'll be addressing this at the end of the agenda. Is that correct, Attorney Ekstrom?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Item 2, committee and/or legislative reports. I will start with Supervisor Angius to my right.
Nothing this morning.
Supervisor Bishop.
I have nothing this morning.
And I would like to say, Supervisor Bishop, it's very nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. It was a wonderful trip back from Nebraska, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Civics Plus put on a webinar hosted by the CEO and co-founder of RiskSense. RiskSense is a security engagement company that has over 2,500 web applications for public and private entities. They work with local government to provide risk assessments on water systems, GIS systems, and many other internet-connected databases critical to local infrastructure. The webinar went over how important cybersecurity is today. Right now, there are 1 billion connected devices, and that number is constantly expanding. It is expected that there will be 15 billion connected devices by the end of this year. With so many connected devices, that are 469,000 unique malware segments discovered weekly. The exposure local government has to risk is expanding. According to RiskSense, there were half as many common vulnerabilities and exposures in the first 3 months of 2015 than there were in all of 2014. The webinar stressed that it is extremely important that local government know where they are vulnerable. The average window of an attack to weaponized is 7.5 days. Some companies only patch their systems every week or even every month. At that rate, there's plenty of time for a hacker to dig into our system and attack. In order to properly assess the threat, it's important that local government IT distinguish between what systems are of high risk and which are not. He used Target as an example. He said Target was hacked through one of their web apps. It was mentioned that Target had 7 opportunities to stop the attack, but because they were not prepared and did not have the proper protocols in place, they were not able to stop it. 3 steps that local government need to take to try to stop a threat are to first find the vulnerabilities in our system, 2, find out where and how hackers can promulgate into your system, and 3, analyze what will be compromised if an attacker attacks the system. It was mentioned that at the end of the attack, that attacks on local governments are increasing because they are an easy target. Local governments usually do not have the security in place to warn off attacks, and if a hacker attacks a large county, they can usually get 80% of the state's population data. They mentioned that non-Civic Plus members can contract with them for a free vulnerability assessment. This might be something that Nathan might want to look into, even though we're not a Civics Plus member, but they will give us a free assessment. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. I also have no report except for one, which is more of a personal nature. My soccer season is finally over, so thank you. The year-long ordeal. Item 3, County Administrator's Report. Anything from you, Mr. Hendricks?
I have no report today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 4, approval of the April 6th and April 20th, 2015 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Good. Going on to call the public. I have no call to the public forums. I do have 4 requests to speak forms on agendized items. Is there anyone who would like to speak during call to the public? Seeing none, we'll move on. To the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda? Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Bishop?
I have none.
Supervisor Angus?
None this morning.
I have none also. May I have a motion on, or Supervisor Watson, do you have any items?
No, I don't.
And I apologize, Supervisor Watson, I skipped over you on the committee and legislative reports. Do you have any committee or legislative reports?
Not at this time. I'll have a nice report when I get back from this WIR conference.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items 5 through 27.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Going on to item 28, public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing for discussion of possible action or adoption of resolution number 2015-076, establishing a 1.7-mile section of Brooks Boulevard beginning at Painted Rock Drive and ending at Jemez Road, located within Township 24 North, Range 15 West, Sections 26, 27, and 28, in the Valley Vista area of the Mohave County as a county highway through resident taxpayer petition. I have two persons who have signed up to speak on this. I will start with Vicki Hoag. Ms. Hoag, if you could approach and please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak to the board.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Hoag, H-O-A-G. It's common mistake. I'm here, I live out in Valley Vista. I'm also a member of the Mohave County Transportation Commission. I'm speaking this morning on behalf of Carlos Cella, who was unable to make it because he had a family emergency and he had to go to California. So with that, I will just read a short statement from him. To the Board of Supervisors, my name is Carlos Cella, and I'm the owner and operator of Cella Wines here in Kingman, Arizona. I first want to thank you for the opportunity to explain my thoughts regarding the paving of Brooks Boulevard and accepting it into the county road system. My wife and I moved here to Kingman, Arizona to retire and enjoy our golden years here. My dream was to convert this dry valley into a lush green wine country. I owned a successful body and repair shop in Huntington Beach, California for 35 years. I am no stranger to hard work and building a successful business. I've also been making wine for the last 20 years as a hobby. Moving here to Kingman, Arizona gave me the opportunity to purchase acres of land needed to plant my own grapes and build a winery. Many were skeptical and more were adamant that it could not be done. In the beginning, I planted 425 plants that took and thrived here. Since then, I have 10,000 vines growing on my land here and in California. I've invested money, time, and energy to build what it is today. We're open every weekend and cater to whoever enjoys wine and conversation. We have not only served people from Kingman, Arizona, but people as far away as Washington, D.C., Canada, and Florida. We are building a name for ourselves and for the city of Kingman. My wife and I would love to see Kingman become a place to visit and stay for a while. I firmly believe that Kingman, Arizona can become another Temecula or Napa Valley. It just takes the vision of a few to create something spectacular for the many. Paving Brooks Boulevard will not only beautify our street and make it accessible to those traveling from afar, but it'll prove to those coming that something big is happening in Kingman, Arizona. My hope is that they keep coming back. Our hope is that you invest in me and those around me who are not only here to live, but to give back to Kingman and make it a place to come to. I think I speak for myself and others when I say that coming alongside us and passing this paving project will increase the value of the city, townspeople, and all those who are coming to enjoy beauty and activities it has to offer. I want to thank you again for this opportunity and to express my desire to see this project go through and building a beautiful Kingman, Arizona. Sincerely, Carlos Cella.
Thank you very much. I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
That's okay. Thank you.
Next person who signed up to speak is Joe Stetson. Ms. Stetson, if you could, Mrs. Stetson, if you could approach. I do have a letter from you, which I'm going to attach to your call to the public request to speak form, and I'll make sure it's included as part of the record.
Thank you. I'm Joe Stetson. I live at 6899 East Brooks Boulevard, and I am in favor of getting the road paved. I have several good points I need to make, so I'm going to have to read fast. If anybody needs to ask a question, please do so. It is our understanding that a recent request to pave Brooks Boulevard in Valley Vista from Painted Rocks to Jamez was in part denied because in the following excerpt from a letter dated April 8, 2011 to Mr. Dustin Bonivert, Engineering Technician Senior, Mohave County Public Works Department. Part of the design and intent and marketing strategy for this project is to capture and promote the Wild West theme of the area. We view the dirt roadway as an important part of the romance of the area that helps enhance the visitor experience. While it was and still is our marketing strategy to combine great wine with the Wild West Route 66, it has been our experience after 2.5 years of operation that many of our customers do not share our enthusiasm for the allure of the dirt roadway system to our winery. When this letter was written in 2011, its purpose was to discuss traffic generation as part of our application for a zone change and a CUP approval to build the first winery and event center in northwestern Arizona. Since this was a pioneering project that introduced a brand new industry to the county, it was written without the benefit of a business model since none existed at the time. Not only did we not have all the answers, we didn't even know all the questions we needed to ask. We have learned by doing and by making mistakes. It is now clear that we were wrong about the dirt roadway system. After 2.5 years of factual feedback from our loyal customer base, both verbally and through social media, we have received overwhelmingly positive comments about our winery, and with the exception of access to the winery via a very rough and dusty road. Based on direct input from our clientele, it is clear that owners of luxury cars, classic cars, RVs, or motorcycles are just not willing to travel on several miles of dirt road to visit Stetson Winery. We lose the patronage of most of the Route 66 travelers because most of them will not drive their vehicles down our dusty dirt road. Motorcycle riders have actually said the dirt road is dangerous and they have to be very careful due to the loose dirt and ridges in the road. This is having a negative effect on our retail sales needed to sustain our winery. The owners of adjacent wineries and other vineyards under construction have also received similar comments. It appears there may be a misperception in the local community that wineries are instant money makers. Nothing can be further from the truth. Although a wine grape rootstock costs only about $4 each, the cost of supporting the infrastructure, including steel supports and irrigation, increases the cost over $100 a plant, excluding labor cost. We have 1,200 vines in the ground, so do the math. Then there are costs of care and feeding the plants. It is until the third year of growth that the plants are mature enough to use the grapes for wine production. In the meantime, we have to buy juice from other sources, which is very expensive. The bottom line is that expansion of the customer base and growing retail sales during the initial 3 to 5 years of operation is essential to sustain the cost of the winery operation. The facts are clear. The bumpy dirt roads and dust are a detriment to some customers, to our customers. We have tried on our own to mitigate the problem by hiring a water truck to reduce the dust. This is very expensive, and it is a waste of water for an industry that typically has the lowest water consumption of most agricultural crops. The county has been very helpful in grading the local roadways after heavy seasonal rains, and we appreciate the fact that they respond quickly to grade the road. But quite frankly, none of these efforts have worked very effectively, and they have not mitigated the problem. As a result, we respectfully ask for the county's reconsideration of our request, and we ask that the paving of Brooks Boulevard be made a priority to benefit the residents of this relatively new and growing area by reducing the dust and to help sustain the growth of the fledgling wine industry in the area of Mohave County. The benefits of the success of the local wine industry to Mohave County are substantial. The wine industry introduces a whole new industry in the area, and it is consistent with the residential agricultural zoning of the area. The development of the new vineyards and wineries in this area have resulted in millions of dollars of private investment in the area. Growing grapes is very labor-intensive, and local operations have already created a substantial number of new jobs. The quality of grapes being produced is very high, and this area may someday compete with the wineries of Wilcox and the Verde Valley. The wine industry is a natural tourist draw to the area, and it adds a whole new attraction to this area. And the local wineries are fast becoming important venues for cultural events in the community. Thank you very much for your consideration of our request to help us support the growth of this new industry in Mohave County.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stetson. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Latosky, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Good morning, Chairman Moss and Supervisors. I do have an exhibit that we could call up on the screen that just provides an aerial map of Brooks Boulevard from the extents of Painted Rock Road, which the board did declare a county highway from Valley Vista on north to Brooks Boulevard, and Public Works, due to the good timing of asphalt millings being available through the Arizona Department of Transportation, did hard surface last year. You know, such milling donations are currently suspended by Arizona Department of Transportation. I highlighted Brooks Boulevard here in the exhibit, and the board certainly can see the scope of current residential as well as some commercial development adjacent the section. Two things in the backup that was provided, and I'd like to just point out is one, I did file a county engineer's report with regard to this roadway proposal. We apply 14 standard factors by which to evaluate the feasibility, advantage, and necessity of declaring any road a county highway, we only found 3 conditions that really stood out as a yes in support. One of which is that there is adequate right-of-way. 2, there is no real other feasible alternate route. And then thirdly, the roadway would serve existing or realistically proposed commercial and or industrial areas, as Mrs. Stetson pointed out. And I should I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mrs. Stetson for the kind words about Public Works' ongoing service of the unsurfaced surface section of Brooks Boulevard and the maintenance we provide. Really appreciate that. The only other point I'd like to make is the Transportation Commission did consider this item, and they did unanimously vote to deny the petition on the basis of the traffic volume and the practicality and expense associated with the county undertaking a road improvement. And staff likewise did reiterate our recommendation not to move forward with the petition on the same basis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Latowski. Does any member of the board have any questions for Mr. Latowski?
Supervisor Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Latowski, the traffic count document, it's not dated. Can you tell me when that was done?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Angius, the Mohave County most recently collected a week's worth of traffic counts, including a weekend in March of 2015. From March 16th to approximately March 23rd. And we purposely collected a weekend of data, which we did find that the traffic did increase on the weekend days, Saturday and Sunday, to about 120 vehicles per day versus about 95 vehicles per day on average.
Any other supervisor have any other questions?
I do, Supervisor Moss.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you. You're in charge of planning and zoning also, correct?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, no, that would be Nick Hunt, our Development Services Director.
Okay, well, for today, I guess you'll have to answer for Mr. Hunt. When people bring a business plan to us and we approve it, whether it's a housing project or anything else, if they plan on having traffic or anything, it's a requirement that they usually pave the roads to alleviate the cost to the rest of the Mohave County taxpayers. Is that true?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, that's an excellent question. I'm actually well positioned to answer that. I was involved in the site plan approval for the Stetson Winery in 2011. That is one of the questions staff posed to the developer at the time as it related to gaining an understanding of how much traffic a winery would generate. It's something of a non-typical use that we usually see. So we posed that question, and while the Stetson Winery did not meet the requirements for a full traffic impact analysis, we did bring the topic up concerning paving. And based on the letter that is in your backup from April 2011, we did find that the level of traffic volume estimated by the developer and his consultant at the time was such a low level that an unsurfaced road would adequately, service that development. And I should point out that those volumes that were anticipated in that April 2011 letter are actually the same level of traffic that exists today.
I guess also they came to us before to get us to take it into the system. We took this road in to our county system, right?
That is correct. It's currently under our regular road maintenance system as an unsurfaced road.
Right. So they've gone from asking us to take it in to asking us to pave the road, which what's our cost now for a mile of road to be paved?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, not having a full improvement project in front of us, staff did not estimate a particular cost. It would be considerable if it was an asphalt, concrete paved road. And I hate to just put numbers out there, but certainly something on the level of probably if I had to venture to guess, about $250,000 for 1.7 miles if it was a asphalted concrete paved road. Now, on Painted Rock, we did take a bit of a shortcut having the donated millings, which does entail a hauling cost from ADOT, which allowed us to achieve that hard surfacing at a substantially lesser amount.
I guess thank you, Mr. Lutowski. Well, I obviously support economic development, and I support what they're doing and what they're bringing in. I think they've gone about it the wrong way. I think they're looking for the taxpayers to pay for the paving of a road when they have the ability to form an improvement district, which other areas have done and put it in. It's something that probably should have been done to begin with, but I'm sure they probably didn't think that their winery would be as successful as it is now. If you do it for them, then you have to do it for everybody else that opens up far away, and those are just my thoughts.
I do have one question for you, Mr. Lukowski, because I didn't really hear it. You gave and I understand it was not an itemized expert opinion as to cost, it was more of a generalized estimate. What was the cost of paving if it was asphalt and concrete?
Chairman Moss,
Ballparkish.
just a ballpark figure, approximately $250,000 for the 1.7 miles.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Chairman
questions?
Moss, if I could, please.
Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. I'd just like to point out the extreme amount of dust we've had in this problem area out there. And the proposal to bring Painted Rock and Brooks together would alleviate that dust situation out there. And I think if we were to take a good hard look at the possibility of using milling as they become available for the adoption of this county road, that might be the best direction to go. Coming up with full asphaltic or concrete road base at over $500,000 is really not acceptable to any of us. But as the millings might become available, we'd certainly like to see that dust abatement for that portion of Valley Vista out there, because it is such a terrible situation out there on the dust. I'd certainly like for us to take a good look at that.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. Is there any other questions? Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, I have a couple questions. Has there been an improvement district discussed or
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Bishop, no, we have not been approached regarding an improvement district.
okay, and do we have millings that are available to do this improvement project?
Supervisor Bishop, unfortunately, we have zero access to millings at this time. Arizona Department of Transportation has statewide made a decision to suspend donations of millings to local government agencies for transportation purposes. The lone option for millings would be for the county to work direct with a contractor that would be receiving ownership of such millings through an ADOT, future ADOT project. But I must caveat that significantly in the sense that the ADOT project really needs to be in a close proximity to the target site of application just because of the undue cost with hauling.
Okay, so if this is approved, would that be contingent on getting availability of the millings?
Supervisor Bishop, hearing what Supervisor Watson had just pointed out, that is certainly an avenue that the board could entertain, qualifying petition approval with approving it on the basis of availability of millings in the future, timeline unknown.
Okay, well, I certainly am aware of the dust situation in Valley Vista. It's not just the dirt road going into the wineries, but it's also the two farms out in the Stockton Hill Road area. So the dust is a really big problem for the folks that live out there, and I'm in favor of doing anything to mitigate the dust problem. Having that in mind, I know that the wineries have been watering down the road, and of course, we're concerned about our water too. So we've got the dust situation, we have the water problem, but we also have economic development, and I think the wineries bring a lot of money into Mohave County, and I've been to several of their events out there, and there is a lot of traffic during these events, and I think we have to consider the safety aspect of it. We have motorhomes going out there that tear up the roads that are dirt, which throws rocks up on motorcycles that are traveling. I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of pros and cons. So I would certainly consider approving this contingent on getting millings that are available. So that's all I have to say.
Chairman Moss, if I could, please.
Yes, Supervisor Watson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this portion of the county, adopted as county road, subject to the availability of millings at no uncertain date, and leave it open to that point. And as millings become available, to proceed with the project.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Just so we have clarity in the record, we'll take it by roll call, if you could handle that. Jenny? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I
before
have
we
a
begin.
question, or more of a statement. Mr. Letowski made it pretty clear that if millings become available, I mean, if they can become available in Havasu or Kingman or anywhere else, and we are able to get them through the contractor who's probably going to charge us for them, the chances of them being out there is going to be so slim. I mean, I think it's something that if millings came available and somebody wanted to bring it back to us to look at, that would be fine, but to do it this way, I obviously can't support it.
Okay. Jenny, can you proceed with the roll call?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Supervisor Watson?
Yes.
Supervisor Angus?
No.
Supervisor Johnson?
No?
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
And Chairman Moss?
No.
Okay, that's 3 noes and 2 yes.
Going on to item 29, regular agenda, discussion of possible action, Ray, revisions of the anti-littering ordinance number 2002-03 for the purpose of removing the 5-day discretionary or notice period.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor Johnson.
As much as I would hate to do this, I would ask for a continuance again. I haven't received, and I doubt the other board members have received the information that was supposed to be forwarded to us regarding the prosecution and how many people that were handled at that time.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good. Going on to item 30, discussion of possible action. Ray, approve grantor agreement number ADES 15-092385 for vending services with the Arizona Department of Economic Security Rehabilitation Services Administration Business Enterprise Program in accordance with the Federal Randolph-Shepard Act, PL 93-516, and ARS Section 53-504, with the term beginning on the date of the last signature and ending September 30th, 2030, on behalf of Mohave County Procurement Department. Annie, do you want to give us an update on this, and then we'll go from there? I'm sorry. Ms. Newton-Fruith, would you please give us an update on this?
Thank you, Supervisor Moss, or Chairman Moss and Supervisors. I met with County Attorney Bill Ekstrom after our last meeting to discuss this and also provide him with the different statutes and the Federal Shepard Act. And after discussion, I'll let him basically say it in his own words, but I believe it at this point, if we don't want to proceed with this agreement, that it's going to have to go through a legislative change, because according to Mohave County Procurement Code, we were required to abide by any law, whether it's federal or state. And at this time, basically, we are required to use the BPE program, because back in 2005, I believe, when this building was first built, we did ask the state to come and look at the building, and they determined that it would fit within their program. And so we've been doing this since 2005, and I believe it was the following year we amended it to include other county buildings. So to not go into this agreement, I believe that we would not be in compliance with state statute.
Is that, Mr. Ekstrom, is that your understanding?
Mr. Chairman, that is my understanding as well. Even though the program, as I view it, doesn't do a whole lot to facilitate employment of blind individuals, it seems to be the only avenue that we can pursue to comply with the statute.
Well, I have a question, Annie and Bill. If we have to do it, why are we voting on it? I mean, when I have a vote, I think I have discretion to say yes or no. So why is it in front of us if we have no choice?
Mr. Chairman, certainly you could say no, and then we would risk being out of compliance with federal and state law.
And what's
Whether
the
anybody
consequences
chooses to
after
do
this?
anything about it.
Are they going to take our vending machines from us?
They can't do that.
All right.
I have questions, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Johnson.
Kind of the same way. The reading of it says we will give priority. I don't understand how, I mean, the law is the law, and we either accept it or we don't. I don't see where you're saying this building, we signed something that makes us super special with the federal government.
Actually, I had a question about that too, being a priority, because the federal Randolph Act had initially said that you will give preference,
Right.
and they changed that in '74 so that it was priority. So I looked up priority in the Webster Dictionary, and it basically states that it's a preferential rating, especially one that allocates rights to goods and services, usually in limited supply, and that proceed as top priority, something given or in writing before competing alternatives. And I saw another one, superiority in rank, position, or privilege, legal precedence in exercise of rights over the same subject matter. So, I mean, to me, that means that we legally must abide by it, because we are to give them priority. And I know that there was some misinterpretation of the information that we were given by the DES regarding the program. And while it said that there were only 3 through the state that had that were legally blind and one of another handicap, all of those numbers, the 3, the 1, and the 224, 226, that were not handicapped in any way, they are all employed by the blind vendors, or the blind contractors. So I do believe that it is helping those, that are blind, because they're the ones that are getting income off of when they subcontract it out. So
That seems like a real rosy attitude. But, I believe it says, like anybody else, like some counties or cities give local preference. So if a local bidder, they might say, well, if you're 5% over, and we'll let you have it. I believe we should go out for a bid. The person we have doing ours, well, I'm not saying there's any complaints, that's not owned by a sight-impaired person, is it?
currently, we're actually operating as unassigned because of the blind operator that used to contract with the vending people. They did pass away, and they don't currently have a blind entrepreneur in our area that has been qualified to take that on. They are looking, and they actually do have 6 blind vendors, but they're not in our area that haven't been assigned. So it's something that through the BEP program, they are constantly looking and training people that want to come into the program.
See, my feeling on this whole thing is that the vendors just go and find a sight-impaired person to put on their payroll to qualify, and then we just have to sign a contract for, we don't even get a chance to negotiate prices or anything else for our people. Most places, I believe, one thing that's kind of confusing to me, I don't believe the cities use this, because when I asked them about I'll call it sharing costs instead of kickbacks. You know, they receive the money back from, you know, a certain amount of money comes back for every soda or candy bar sold to offset their costs or to use as the government sees fit. But I would rather, and this contract is for what, 15 years?
Yes.
I would soon go out to bid on this and make Mr. Ekstrom go to court and
I would
use his talents.
say something here when it comes to giving priority, and this is just my opinion, my lay opinion, Bill. If we don't have other bids, what are we giving them priority over?
That's one of the difficulties, is we do not have any other local bidders. Now, we could try to procure it, see if somebody came along.
Because if I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to give, contract A from the Randolph-Shepard Act, which seems like a very noble act, priority, I have to be giving them priority over something, and we don't have anything to give them priority over. It's like we're being told it's almost a monopoly, which is, I don't think, what we want to be part of, but that's just my impression.
Chairman
Supervisor
Moss?
Angus.
Well, first, I want to thank Supervisor Johnson for taking this out of the consent agenda so we can talk about it, because I had no idea. And as I read it, I was getting angrier and angrier, because as always in it is, it sounds one of those things, the government, it starts out sounding noble, and then by the time we're knee-deep in it, we don't know. I'm sure if you dug, into who exactly is making the money, we wouldn't be as willing to go along with it as we seem to be for 15 years. And I've already spoken to our Senator Kelly Ward to look into it, because I do think that it does sound like a monopoly, and it doesn't give us options. And anything, the government can come in and tell you what to do and who to hire, who to do these things. When, by statute, I'm always being told we have to get competitive bids. We have to do that. That's, for the last 3 years, that's all I've been told. And then all of a sudden, government comes in and says, no, we want you to do this, and I don't like that. So I am all for going out and getting bids for this.
Supervisor Angus, I'm not sure that we can do that, because according to the statute, it says that we have to abide by this once we're in the program. I believe we've already made that, that choice to do the program. And I think that, if we don't want to use the program, that we would have to have the vending machines removed at that point, and we can't,
All right.
Mr.
That's all right
Chairman,
with me.
I might point out that this doesn't really happen until September 30th, which would give us, it seems to me, adequate time to explore maybe the bid process, to approach the state to see if there are alternatives. So we're not under any pressure to enter into this at this
Let
time.
me ask this question, just so I make sure the people who are viewing this understand. I'm going to try to phrase the issue, and you can tell me if I get it right or wrong. Our county buildings, and we have many buildings throughout Mohave County, have vending machines which provide snacks, soda pops, things like that, to employees and to the public. Under this law, which went into effect, or this contract agreement that went into effect back in 2000, roughly 15 years ago, if I remember correctly, maybe 10 years ago, we agreed to be part of this program because the proceeds were going to help vision-impaired blind people. And that was the purpose of the act, the federal legislation to begin with. We're now being told that we have to sign the new agreement because the law says we have to sign the new agreement. Have I summed up the issue accurately?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm hearing from you, Attorney Ekstrom, that we have until September before this agreement is really up, and that perhaps in the meantime we can explore other options. Am I correct about that? All right. It occurs to me, one, I don't think anyone on this board wants to violate the law. And, well, shh, that's an admission against interest. Never say those words. That we would like to, on the other hand, not be trapped and dictated to, and people ask for our vote when there's actually no legal requirement, apparently, that we give our vote because it's automatic. We don't like monopolies, and we're not really sure that this program is actually benefiting, substantially benefiting the sight impaired, as opposed to people who are piggybacking on the rights of the sight impaired. So With that, and in order to give Mr. Ekstrom some cover for when, roughly 60 days from now, if this is continued, I will vote against this. You have a motion to continue this for a period of 60 days in order for Mr. Ekstrom to use his lawyerly skills and try to find a Weasley way out from Mohave County, Arizona.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, can we just go out for bids for this while he does the same thing because of the timeline?
Yeah, but I'm going to amend my motion. I'm going to amend that we continue this for a period of 60 days. In the meantime, that we direct procurement to go out to, I don't know if the proper term is bid, but request for proposals, I believe, so that we would have an understanding if there are other services available to Mohave County, Arizona, so we can make a more intelligent decision down the road.
I would make that motion, Madam Clerk.
I will second the motion.
Excellent.
And the question I would have too is Supervisor Angius said that she had talked with Kelly Ward. Would the board entertain something to, maybe a letter to the governor? Because I think we're all in agreement, if one person's at the top, really doesn't benefit all the sight-impaired people. If you got 200 people below them that have no problem, where maybe this is a program that, if it was something that was employing 236 sight-impaired people, then it'd be like that. That's obviously a great deal, but I just think it's a figurehead that somebody puts in.
I believe when it comes to the board sending a letter, I can instruct Mr. Hendricks to place that issue on the next agenda, so it doesn't have to be part of the motion itself. But we will add to Mike's very large work pile and ask him to bring us a letter for review on this issue.
I'll amend my motion, Madam Clerk.
All right. Good. All right.
I do. I second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Going on, item 31, discussion and possible action. Ray, acknowledge receipt of the draft Mohave County Personnel Policies and Procedures for review and subsequent placement on the June 15, 2015 board meeting for discussion with any proposed revisions to the document from the board to be compiled by the Human Resources Department. Mr. Cunningham, welcome to the hot seat. If you could introduce this issue to us and to the public.
Chairman Moss and Supervisors, this is a continuation of the personnel policies proposal that we did back in March, and then we had a workshop in October, I believe. What this is compiling all the suggestions from the old merit rules, the suggestions of the supervisors, suggestions of staff, and compiling them and giving you a new policy. The main reason of this policy is we've had merit rules, we've had policies and procedures scattered in many different areas. What this policies and procedures is, it brings that all under one document. And in the future, the way it's in these personnel policies is that we can bring a portion of that, let's say section 3.1, we can bring that in front of the board with modifications because the law changes, need to change the policy, and we can bring just that section to the board so we wouldn't have to review the entire 156 pages, more or less. We can do certain sections. So today is just to bring that to the board so they will have a chance to review the revised draft of the personnel policies so they can make any suggestions or changes for a future meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Now, before, I'm going to ask you to have a seat again because I was very rude and impolite, and I'm being rude and impolite to you because I forgot to call for Beth Cordes, who had filled out a request to speak form.
Okay.
And that was my oversight, and I apologize to Ms. Cordes. Ms. Cordes, if you're present in the room, if you can approach and state your name and your address for the record.
Good morning. My name's Beth Cordes. I'm a 16-year Mohave County employee. I live at 2720 Wickiup Avenue here in Kingman. Human Resources' role in the county administration is to interpret the merit rules and policies, guide the employees and administration alike. HR had a duty to inform the employees of the major changes to their benefits. lowering earned PTO payout to 250 hours at retirement separation without cause is wrong. The county employees are not at fault, did not warrant through their individual actions or performance a reason to take away their benefits. Notification of these changes cannot be hidden behind legal notification. Saying that it is in the backup agenda, an item a week before it is to be discussed at a board meeting and decided a month later. Many employees don't have a computer and are not computer literate. HR's duty was to ensure they were all informed and given a chance to ask questions, provide input, and disagree. I don't see anything about the addition of short-term disability in today's changes to compensate for the 400-hour cap which affects FMLA absences. If so, will the county pay for it, as it did in the plan that was dropped in 2004? That STD program was dropped when we increased PTO to cover this time. Not aggressively involving or notifying our employees of major changes to their benefits and pay rests on the shoulders of HR. HR's insistence to the county management that a more aggressive notification and involvement of employees on these changes is how you guide county management and treat employees ethically. All employees in any walk of life need incentives. Please don't write this off as we are lucky to have a job. We were hired into these positions because of our qualifications, and we have earned our place here. You are lucky to have us. I believe the current PTO program for current employees should stay in place for those employees. They are not at fault for poor financial management and should not be punished. At the very least, leave everything in place until you can come up with a more reasonable plan, which should also include a short-term disability insurance policy. I thank HR for the inclusion of the bulleted flyer to all employees that was in the backup today. That hits everywhere. Their pay and benefits are changed, good and bad. I would ask that they give step-by-step instructions on how to see or download a copy of the revisions from the HR department area on the website, so they may see the changes that are proposed. This flyer should encourage them to call HR or their supervisor with ideas, disagreements, and questions. As a final note, before taking away employee benefits, please look everywhere else. Do we need more buildings, or can we double duty or renovate current buildings? Is there some funding out there that could be lowered when historically it's become bloated? Ask your employees to do...
Ma'am,
I have 10 seconds.
you get 10 seconds then.
Okay. Ask your employees to do all they can do to lower costs. Implement a cost-saving awards program that encourages great ideas from employees. Write them up, turn them in for an award. Put into place a PTO dump plan as used in other companies. The employees sell back PTO in May or November. The money helps the employees, knocks down the PTO bank for finance. It keeps employees at work with that many more hours, and the money is primarily spent in our community. Win-win.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For the edification of the public, the board is not voting on whether to accept this plan today. We're voting on to accept the report. But having said that, Mr. Cunningham, now that I've corrected my oversight with Ms. Cordes, to which I do apologize to her on, if we can pick up where we left off with this report before I interrupted you.
No, sir. To answer some of the questions, the drafts of the personnel policies and procedures have been on the HR homepage. I believe we put them on right before we had the workshop. So they have been on during this process. Human Resources, in conjunction with department heads, the Finance Department, OMB, Risk Management, Public Health, Court, Human Resources, County HR. This has been the department heads from all these areas coming together to try and update these policies, since our policies, I believe they're dated 1991, and they're no longer current with federal and state labor laws. So there was no intention to hide anything. This has been discussed with department heads, managers, and management meetings. I believe it has been open to the public. It's just whether or not all the information has got down to the line staff, that if there's a better way that we can do it, we will definitely do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham. And for the edification of the public, the major policy changes which are being, I guess, they're all major, but the big thorn of contention, based upon the emails, letters, and other communications I received, has been the reduction of employees' paid time off, called PTO, from 900 hours down to some lesser figure. So that's generally where we're at right now. If I'll start with, to my right, Supervisor, actually, I'll start with Supervisor Watson since he's on the phone. Supervisor Watson, do you have any questions for Mr. Cunningham or anyone else regarding this, the acceptance of this report?
I have no questions today.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Cunningham for finally getting this, these merit rules done. I think from the day I sat in this chair, had been told that they were being worked on, and it's almost 3 years later, so things move slowly. I want everyone to know that we are going to be looking at everything, seriously, soberly, and this is just from me, with the best interest of the employees and the taxpayer in mind. There are a lot of things that have been put in place that this board probably wouldn't have chosen to do, and there are laws we have to abide by. It is not a small thing, and I want to just make sure that the employees know that this is a very difficult time, and we're going to take our time doing this. And I believe everybody, all the employees, have had opportunities, and if you haven't, please speak to your manager, and you have the opportunity to let your managers know, and then through us, they get forwarded to us. And so we are reading everything that the employees are saying, and I can speak for myself, and taking all of that into consideration. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
I'll just echo what Supervisor Angus has said. This has been an ongoing project, and I don't think it's being taken lightly by any of the department heads, and we certainly appreciate every one of our county employees. I have to go back a few years ago when I worked for the sheriff's office, and we had a lieutenant that was ready to retire, and he went out on PTO for 3 years. And I think we've improved since those days, but it's still a major problem when someone that's built up so much PTO retires, and then financially the county has to pay that retirement. So I think PTO is something that we've needed to look at for years and years, and it's something that's very unpleasant to look at, and we don't want to hurt employees or take away a promise that we gave them. So it's something that we will be seriously looking at, and not doing anything lightly. We have our employees' best interest at heart, but we also have the taxpayers' best interest, and we're trying to balance a budget and do what's right for Mohave County. So I will approve accepting this, and then we'll be studying it for quite a while.
Good. Supervisor Johnson.
I guess the only questions I have with Mr. Cunningham, I have a statement, and this isn't covered in the statement, are why did you decide, or the group decide, to go from IRS mileage to a different mileage fee reimbursement?
That's a good point.
The Supervisor Johnson, what was decided when the group was discussing this is there's been maybe some mismanagement of the reimbursement for mileage, where there has been people who have gone to a meeting, the same meeting, driving 4 different vehicles and getting reimbursed. The push is to use a county vehicle whenever possible to save the county funds. And then if the employee does not have access to a county vehicle, then they would get reimbursed at the IRS mileage. But if they chose to use their personal vehicle, then it would be the mileage cost where they would just where the county would break even. It wouldn't be an expense for the county.
All right, well, that sounds good in theory if you live in Kingman, but if you're in one of the outlying areas, it's impossible for us to get a vehicle in those areas because you have to call and request one sent down. Then, so you have to take it when it shows up. They might need it, say, to go to Phoenix in the morning, but it gets here the day before, so now they're charged an additional day rental on that vehicle. Then when it comes back, there's nobody there to take it, so they have to drive to Kingman and have somebody follow them to return a vehicle I think that needs to be looked at. Also, on the meal per diems. I mean, the elected officials see it a lot, but especially with our employees who might be traveling, it doesn't even come close to covering what the costs are. And while I don't have a lot of sympathy maybe for myself and other elected officials, our employees, they can't absorb those kind of costs. I mean, when I travel to D.C., your per diem doesn't even cover the breakfast, let alone any other meals. Why is the change in that?
Supervisor Johnson, that came out of the committee. There used to be two different versions of the cost, one in the metro areas and one in other areas. I believe it was from a suggestion from the workshop that we lower the per diem because it was extremely high. I think it was $65 a day, I think. And then now I believe it's $55 per day. So the changes were made to hopefully cover those costs, depending on where that employee is at.
$65 a day, I don't believe that's the cost, but I won't argue. That's the questions I had there. I do have a statement whenever we get the chance, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm going to make one comment, then I'll turn the floor over to you. Mr. Cunningham, you can have a seat. Thank you. I would like to clarify for the public's edification and the employees' edification that this is just a presentment of the report. This is a draft that the administration and the committee has prepared. In between now and the final vote, the supervisors will have a power to tweak it, change it, modify it, or accept it and whole cloth. It's up to us. The buck has landed on our desk, and we've got to decide how we want to slice that buck up. I will notice on the PTO issue, because that is the number one issue that I hear about from time to time, employees, both high and low, seem to be upset with the reduction being contemplated. I will say only this on the subject for right now. It is my understanding that the county's general fund is in excess of 50% allocated to wages and benefits and salaries and things of that nature. If we are now $2.5 million in the hole this year, it will be a while before we see that trend reverse. If we need to be sound financial stewards of the public's money, something has to give. And unfortunately, most of the give appears to be in wages and benefits. Most of the money appears to be there. And this is very minor in the grand scheme of things that is being contemplated. So that's my initial impressions. I will turn the floor over to Supervisor Johnson when it comes to his statement on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reading this agenda item, I'm perplexed as to what it's supposed to be accomplishing. We are not facing the possibility that a great number of employees are retiring within a short period of time and that a large payout of monies is expected. I was opposed to the 39-day PTO when it was instituted. I said that it was not sustainable. I also said that even though it was supposed to combine vacation and 6 days and bridge the time for short-term disability, that would be immediately forgotten and seen as vacation days only. It is not possible to run any organization with 39 days a year vacation. All but one letter I received from employees referred to the 39 days as vacation, not a combination of sick and vacation. This problem does need to be addressed, but what we have in front of us I do not believe does that. The amount of excess time saved on the books is a problem, but it's not an employee problem, it is a management problem. Managers or directors should be reviewing accrued time off and scheduling employees to take their time. Of course, that leads to more problems for managers as they do not have enough employees to complete the work of the county with this plethora of time off. It also is a problem for our long-term employees who care about the county and the job they do. Most of our long-term employees are in a position of responsibility and know that if they take this time off, everything backs up, citizen service slows or stops, and their desks are stacked with projects when they come back as no one has done them. I talked to many employees on weekends and after hours who are still at their desk trying to finish their work and are never put in for the time because they already have more hours saved than they can use. Our shortage of personnel and their ability to perform their jobs was mentioned in our recent audit. The Auditor General noted our short staffing in finance and IT. And it is not just two departments. Every county department is running short staff, which is catching up with them as more requirements and work are piling up. I've had problems with our whole merit system since I took office. My thought is that we go back to the everyday standard of 5 or 10 vacation days for the first 5 years with progressive increases to max out at 20. The savings of time needs to be capped at, say, a 2-year combined. I've brought it forward before, but we could offer a payout to employees who save 2 years' vacation and buy out 1 year's worth of vacation time. I'm not sure what is appropriate for sick time off, 5 days, 10 days a year, but there must be an industry standard. Sick time should not increase, but the saving of it to cover short-term disability should be encouraged. Whether we cap the amount saved or let it accrue with no payout or a 50% payout is something we could address. We currently have 438 employees in excess of their 400-hour cap and 33 in excess of their 900-hour cap. How does this happen if we have good management? This is a $2.6 million liability. We cannot allow, as we have in the past, to let them take months off prior to retirement and burden time when we have work that needs to be accomplished. Like I said, I voted against the plan, and we now have, but it was given to the employees, and they have a right to what was promised. What am I concerned is when you have 2 employees, one who took every day off allotted to them, and another who saved their time, is it fair to tell the employee that did not use their time that they are now going to lose it? Now, if they've gone over the cap that was set, that is a different issue. They knew the rules, but that brings me back to a dedicated employee who gave up their time to serve the taxpayers, an employee who was just using the time as a savings account. These days off were a combination of sick and vacation, so should we look at allowing employees to move their time into a sick day account? Also, I see where the floating holiday was taken out and then put back in. I proposed this day 16 years ago to show appreciation for work our employees were doing when we could not give cost of living increases, and we're cutting budgets and asking them to do more with less people. It was never intended to be permanent. I believe it should have gone away years ago. It now adds up to the problem we face today, and this one day cost the county $216,600. Our problem is not just these accumulation of hours, it is our whole personnel policy. Addressing one issue is not going to solve our problem. I cannot remember the last time employees received their merit or step increases. Employees who do their jobs and put in the required years or improve their education should automatically move to the appropriate pay grade without a board action. New hires are making as much as our long-term employees who have so much more value to the county. Unless you happen to be one of the lucky ones who gets it on the reorganizations that I dislike so much, you're stuck waiting for the county to get financially right so we can afford pay raises. And when pay raises are given, every pay range should increase by the amount of the raise so that we're not excluding our senior personnel. Without addressing the whole system, the issue we are addressing today is just sticking our finger in the dike. We are further exacerbating the problem with the cuts to staffing this year and our continued lack of training. I agree that it must be changed, and I'd like to see it changed now. I do not want to see it dragged out further than this current budget cycle, but I would not mind seeing a few representatives from our line personnel sit down as part of a committee with HR and management to work out a new system. It will not be painless, but reality has to be restored along with a financially sound plan that rewards our employees and attracts new hires. Whatever we do, I would also like to see all changes broken down in size to changes alone with red line next to them showing the change and sent to all employees so they know exactly what issues we are addressing instead of the entire 70-some pages. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. Is there anything else from the board member?
Yes. I want to thank Supervisor Johnson. 3 years ago, Supervisor Johnson told me, I think it was the first conversation we ever had, that we have to do something about PTO. And I didn't understand the gravity of it until I started working here and understand it. And when this is reported tomorrow and the public is going to be asking a lot of questions, the whole system is ridiculous. I just have to say it. The whole system of the way governments are run and the way people are paid and the way they get their benefits is antiquated, and it doesn't go to the good running of any organization. I have said this publicly before. I would wish, hope, pray that one day governments run like businesses and that's all merit-based and that you were rewarded on your performance, not just because you happen to be warming the seat for several years or whatever, and that you, if the guy next to you is not doing as a good job of you, that you're looking over him saying, why is he making the same as me? That's not good for morale. It's not good for anyone. But that all being said, we are where we are. And I want to ask Mr. Cunningham a question, because short-term disability was brought up. We changed that. I'm the chairman of the EBT, and we did put short-term disability back in. Can you explain how that's going to help the situation?
Supervisor Angius, Chairman Moss, The EBT board did approve that we bring in short-term disability, which will be effective July 1st of this year. There'll be a 30-day wait period, so an employee, in order to get to short-term disability, will have to use between 160 to 180 hours of PTO, depending on how the schedule falls in that 30 days. And then once short-term disability kicks in, then they get paid a portion of their paycheck. I believe it's 66%, and then they can use additional PTO to make a full paycheck if they desire.
And can you remind me how much this cost us when we put it back into the budget?
The short-term disability? Yes, ma'am. The short-term disability costs approximately $150,000.
$150,000. Because they took $150,000 out of the budget, what year was it, 2004? We now have about a $2.5 million liability, and I just want everyone to kind of understand how we all got here. We can't go back in history, but it is our duty as the board, especially in these times of our budgetary crisis, to address these issues, and we intend to. Again, I'm reading every letter that's being sent, and I understand it, and like Supervisor Johnson said, it's not the fault of the employees. The employees were promised certain things, so we have even a bigger situation to deal with, and I want everyone to understand that too, that we have a big responsibility that we have to deal with, and we're going to do the best we can. That's all.
I have a question, Chairman Moss.
Supervisor Johnson.
Supervisor Angius brought up a good point on short-term disability. How does that become the responsibility of government or any business? In private business, I've never seen short-term disability offered to anybody. It was always up to the person to cover their own short-term disability, I guess.
Supervisor Johnson, it would depend on the industry. I know I came from the medical industry where short-term disability was provided to employees. There's other places where, like AFLAC is being used. We currently have options for AFLAC for short-term disability. So, I can't tell you which industries have more short-term disability than others, but I know there's a mixture out there. Some companies don't even offer benefits. Others offer, gold plans. We're kind of in between in those varied plans, but short-term disability is being used out there, paid by the employer, and then some paid by the employee.
Just off the top of your head, how many people a year are using short-term disability with the county?
Using short-term disability?
Yes.
I'm not quite sure on how many use it. I think we have about 50 employees that have signed up for our AFLAC short-term disability plan.
No, I mean how many of them actually use or are on short-term disability in a year? 5, 10, 1?
Sir, that would depend on, we have people out on medical leaves that have ranged anywhere from 2 weeks to months. Average, I would say less than a dozen on average, but that could go up depending on circumstances.
Right, but with their sick time, if they've saved time and budgeted, everybody should have enough to cover themselves for a couple of weeks. And it doesn't kick in until what point does your short-term disability kick in?
Short-term disability kicks in depending on the plan that they purchase.
Well, with the one the county is going to buy.
The one the county is, there's a 30-day calendar, 30 calendar days that they would have to wait before short-term disability kicks in.
That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Is there anyone else? Supervisor Watson, do you have anything to say?
No, I don't have anything further. I'll be studying this issue with a great deal of research and realizing that we have an obligation to our employees. It's a great, delicate subject to be approached with a great deal of caution and understanding.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. That being said, can I have a motion to approve the acceptance of the draft Mohave County Personnel Policies and Procedures for review and subsequent placement on the June 15, 2015 board meeting for discussion with any proposed revisions for the document from the board to be completed by the Human Resources Department?
So moved.
A second, and for discussion also. The motion I saw, it said something about the board is to work with HR and they're going to compile stuff, shouldn't it be, we just bring us back and everybody discusses it, because it puts a lot of pressure on the, I mean, it's not going to be very transparent if we're not.
The way I read the current proposal is that we would suggest changes to HR publicly, vote on those changes, give them to HR, who would make the revisions, and bring them back to us for voting on the final document. So, but June 15th is where we give them, we discuss what changes we want to make, and we give him instructions, the HR department instructions on that. Did I misunderstand that motion, or that the thrust behind this item, Mr. Cunningham?
Chairman Moss, no, sir, I believe that is the correct understanding.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Excellent. Going on to item 32, discussion of possible action. Ray, accept the resignation because of retirement of Robert Prince, Risk Manager, effective at the end of the workday, June 1st, 2015, and set the parameters necessary to fill the vacancy. Supervisor Johnson, I'll turn this over to you.
Mr. Chairman, I placed this on the agenda. We received a letter from Mr. Prince stating that his intention to retire, and then I see that there's advertising going on for a position that's under our control. I thought the board would want to set the parameters and do the advertising.
Let the record reflect, I did not do that.
Somebody's pacemaker. But I thought that was something the board should look at, because it's going to be our hire.
Okay. Is there any other comments on this item?
I just want, is Mr. Prince here? He's back there, I see. Yes, I want to reiterate that this is not a resignation. It is a retirement. For some reason, Bob thinks it's going to be more fun to go fishing with his grandchildren than to come in and deal with angry lawsuits every day, and I don't get it, but to each his own. And I just wanted to wish him and Peggy well on your very well-deserved retirement. I'm going to miss you.
Okay, Supervisor Johnson, do you have any ideas as specifically how you'd like to act on this?
We had guidelines before. I don't know if everybody has a chance to look at those to see if that's something they want to do regarding experience, education. I was kind of looking to see what the other board members wanted to do as far as a backup and, for requirements to put out, and then a salary range, because obviously that's going to be a...
I'll ask Mr. Hendricks, what's the status of this, and what parameters are out there in the public now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that HR Mike could give us a better update than I had, but I had directed HR to go ahead and go nationwide on an advertisement to start collecting applications for the job. In the past, what we've done is the board has wanted to see every single application that was received. The board has wanted the applications to be screened by staff, by my staff, and have me involved, and then we would shortlist who we believed were the best qualified applicants, and the board could add to that short list if you felt that we missed a qualified applicant that the board wanted to consider, and then we would set up a time that the board could actually interview these applicants. And I did miss a step, that in our shortlisting, administration and my staff would actually do an initial interview, whether that be in person or telephonically, to come up with a short list for the board.
Okay. I would add, my recollection was one clarification on what you said, Mr. Hendricks, is that the board did not decide who to add to the short list. Any individual or board member could add to that short list.
Yes,
it wasn't a board action, it was an individual supervisor action. Let's start with Supervisor Angius. Is there anything you'd like to add to that process?
No. It's a specific skill set that they have to have experience and qualifications, and I trust the county more than my background, honestly.
Mm-hmm. All right, Supervisor Bishop.
The procedure looks pretty short and sweet, and I look forward to looking at the applications that are on the short list, and if I come up with a name that sounds better, I'll be sure and let Mr. Hendricks know.
Before I go to Supervisor Johnson, who is the sponsor of this particular item, I'll go to Supervisor Watson. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to that? Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Moss. I don't have anything to add at the moment.
Excellent. Supervisor Johnson.
I believe this is, the board decided that we wanted to have this person work under us. And I believe this person is being currently evaluated in the old system by county's management. I believe that if we're going to do it, then we should have it done, you know, we have a League of Cities, cities and towns that has a board that can review applications and send them to us. ACO can do the same thing. I don't know why. I mean, I think there should be a separation where the board is hiring somebody to work for them. It shouldn't have anything to do with county staff being involved. That was just mine.
Okay. My thoughts are, and I have two thoughts here, and they're somewhat mutually exclusive with each other, so I can go either fork. Is one, I think the process that we just discussed with Mr. Hendricks and clarified worked to a degree, because I think we got Mr. Prince and some other people that way. The second thought I have, Supervisor Johnson, is if we're going to deviate with the process we've used in the past, maybe we should have a more specific proposal. Would it be helpful for you if we gave you some time to put together a specific proposal on who to handle it, who to vet it, things of that nature?
Sure, I can have it ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
I didn't want to be presumptuous and do something that...
Would the board have an objection to continuing this item to the next meeting to give Supervisor Johnson time to put together a specific proposal for us to review that would substitute in the place of the prior process, which I agree was kind of ad hoc, to consider? All right. Can I have a motion to continue this until the next regular board meeting?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Going on to item 33. This time, on item 33, I made my little text cue that we have someone who is signed up to speak. Mr. Robinson, if you could please step up and please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. And because you're an old hand at this, I'm going to make sure you stay with your 3 minutes. I've been slacking off on that today a little bit.
I will summarize some of my remarks.
Okay.
I'm Steve Robinson, 3439 North Bowie Road in Golden Valley, the Golden Valley Fire Board Director. First, I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for consideration of this item. I support your acceptance of the OMB's report regarding Golden Valley Fire District. This report confirms in part what was stated by numerous people at the April 8th special board meeting. Furthermore, it stands in stark contrast to claims by those who have persistently opposed award of the ambulance service that includes current and former employees and board members. However, I want to make it clear that there has been strong support in both the community and in the board previous actions in support of the ambulance service, 96% approval by the community survey. There are two significant issues regarding the OMB's report. First, it discusses the real cost of operating the ambulance service versus what the statutes require us to report in an ARCR. Second, the concern expressed by Mr. Hepler, who did a great report, by the way, regarding the possible deficit spending. I'll respond in order. He mentions that there was about $1.3 million of expenses that it shows up on their ambulance cost and revenue and cost report that we currently are incurring, and that is correct. There was about $1.5 million shown up on that report saying that because of the way the statutes read, we have to take 68% of our costs and apply it to the ambulance service. However, there was another $350,000 of expenses that were shown on that report, most of which also are currently being incurred and will continue to be incurred regardless of whether or not we have the ambulance service. So what that means is about $1.6 million of expenses will continue to incur. So instead of a $938,000 loss, the district will have somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 in surplus revenues, which help reduce our cost of, or the risk of having to raise taxes. The second issue, and I have quick time, we only have incurred in operating expenditures in the previous 2 fiscal years about $158,000 net deficit. We chose to keep our rate at 2.9 per of 100 to protect our taxpayers, because we have seen a tremendous loss. If we get this if we get the ambulance service, we will be able to keep our rate at 2.9. If we don't get it, then we will have to raise it. And I think this report says we did a good job of managing our finances, and we will continue to do so regardless of whether or not we get the service.
Cut you off now, Mr. Robinson. Thank you. All right, Supervisor Johnson, this is under your name. Do you have anything you'd like to add or state about the report?
I have some questions. I see the fire chief is here, if he's willing to answer a few questions I have.
Chief Donahue, are you willing to, you're under no obligation, you're just a citizen, but if you'd like, you can come answer some questions.
Chief,
See if I can answer them for you.
Yeah, they're general questions. Since 2012, the district assessments dropped 41%. How have your staffing levels changed since 2009? Have you gone down in personnel, or?
No, actually, we've made some modifications to our staffing. We've gone up a little bit. Some of the increase in staffing was to offset overtime that was being incurred. So we initiated a floater position in there to take up and offset any of the overtime that was being incurred. And it's made some reductions.
So you're still staffing all your fire stations?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you now have, because there's been quite a bit of news media, do we now have an accountant that handles payroll and checks and those things? It's my understanding that somebody just, the last one you hired just quit last week or something?
Yeah, we had one who didn't particularly care for the politics that are going on in our community, and I don't blame her. Not one of us does like that. We're in the process of interviewing. We have a CPA that we've interviewed here last week, and an additional person that has 12 years of CPA-type financial management for a private organization, and I'm doing background checks on both as we speak.
And then with regard to your CON, is it true that you're saying that you're going to run an ambulance service with only 4 additional people?
Actually, we'll initially hire 3. The floater position will be covering that 4th, and yes, we already, one of the things that the community didn't seem to grasp is that we already provide the service, we already respond to the calls, I already have the staff, I already have most of the equipment, and so the additional cost for running the ambulance service, when you look at the ARCR, contemplates having to hire all those people and put in all those facilities and purchase that equipment. We're already doing everything except for the one piece, which is the financial benefit piece where we actually get paid for it, of transporting from the call to the hospital. So we're already doing everything that the ambulance service will require of us, minus the transportation to the hospital.
All right, so if I'm correct, the fire department responds to a call, and then if an ambulance is needed, then they will call back and a person will respond with an ambulance. But the ambulances are required to have
Well, let me
people, right?
correct that. We'll respond with an ambulance.
With an ambulance?
That's correct.
Yes.
We have our firefighter paramedics already on staff, so we'll respond with, and we have a response model we've already worked on, and we're perfecting and training our staff on in preparation of moving ahead.
Okay, and there's 2 people required on an ambulance?
Yes, sir.
And then we usually have, paramedic and an EMT is the...
As a minimum.
And that is what your department can, employs at this time? You have that many EMTs and paramedics?
I have approximately 5 paramedics per shift on at 3 different stations, so yes. We're ready to go.
But if your ambulance, if you call back to the station, well, obviously one person's going to drive an ambulance out. Now you're going to short-staff your fire crew to...
Hey, is this a question about operations and response models or about finance?
It's about how you're going to staff this.
So we're talking how we're going to run the operation, how we're going to actually manage our day-to-day fire calls versus EMS calls. We've done the math on this, and data shows that we're going to be transporting just over 3 calls per day, 3 times per day. We have a call volume of about 2,000 calls a year. of those 2,000 calls a year, about 26% of those are non-emergency type calls that don't require an emergency response. When we talk about fire calls, less than 4% of our calls are actually fire suppression type incidents, and over 68% of those calls are EMS. So when you start looking at the statistics, that 68% of our calls are EMS type calls. Of those, 75% of those require a transport. And of the fire calls that you're referring to and that people have brought up that they're worried about, less than 4% of those are actually fire suppression calls.
Correct. I understand that. What I'm saying is, the part that struck me as odd was claiming that this will be able to be run with 3 people, because you're going to have somebody there 24 hours a day to drive an ambulance out to the call. And I understand it's a rescue call. I understand fire departments really don't put out that many fires anymore. They do rescue
that's
calls
true.
for people is what they do. But then, so you will, I was just trying to get my head around, so when they come out, then you will send, if that guy's already a paramedic, you will send another paramedic with them, so that's how you're covering the bodies. That's what I'm trying to get out.
Well, of the three fire stations that we have on duty 24 hours a day, at that time we'll have a minimum staffing of 8 personnel. With those 8 personnel, we'll do an average transport of 3.1 per day. Of those 3.1 per day, probably 2 of those will be out of, and I'm generalizing this, will be out of our Station 11 and 12, and periodically out of Station 13. Station 11, the main station, will have 2 full-time staffs there, so they'll staff 2 apparatus. The other 2 stations will have what we do cross-staffing, which means they'll either jump on the fire engine or the ambulance and handle that call. We're going to have a duty chief rotation where we have additional personnel that handle more critical type calls, and we'll have a captain who'll be running in a battalion chief's type role and who'll also be helping with that. But I know the concerns that were out there, but we're really not that busy of a fire district. Of the 2,000 calls that we handle during the year, again, 68% of those are EMS type calls. And of the 3 stations that will be handling calls on every day, we're handling 3.1 transports per day. Some people are led to believe that maybe we're not busy enough. So we've done, this is almost a 5-year project we've been working on, and we've looked at it backwards and forwards, compared ourselves to other organizations. As a matter of fact, this last week I was in a meeting with somebody from Yuma Fire who also obtained their CON. They have 4 ambulances, and they do 8,000 transports a year. 8,000. That's a stark and drastic difference in what Golden Valley is going to be doing with a minimum of 3 and oftentimes 4 ambulances on duty every day.
And the majority of your calls are going to be from the house or point of origin to the hospital, because I know a lot of the ambulance companies, their bread and butter where they make their money is intertransportation between hospitals. And
correct, and we're not doing interfacility transports.
I'll be doing those. I think that's the only questions I had of the chief. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much, Supervisor Johnson. Is there any other questions from any other member of the board? I'll start with Supervisor Watson, who's on the phone.
No further questions.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Angus?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop?
No questions.
I will say that I have read the OMB report, Mr. Robinson and Chief Donahue, and I will say that my interpretation was it was very positive of the Golden Valley Fire Department. There was a few things that dinged you here and there. Well, I've read a few of the county reports. We've been dinged here and there. That's part of when you run a very large operation with lots of money. There are sometimes that I is not dotted or a T is not crossed, but they were very minor in the grand scheme of things. I think you should be applauded on the financial handling.
Thank you.
Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor I'm sorry, Supervisor Johnson. I'm used to looking to my left and seeing Supervisor Watson. I missed him. I saw Johnson. I apologize.
It's all right.
You were close. You were close.
That's right.
There's an SO in it to you.
I'm the younger one. I guess a little bit of the devil's advocate here. I brought this to the board because the board has recently taken over 2 fire districts. One district was bailed out by taxpayer money dollars and took up a considerable amount of our staff time away from their work. In 2012, there was a report by Mr. Evans, a CPA, to the Arizona State Legislature. And I think the picture, you know, obviously we wish everybody the best of luck, but the picture they gave was the financial performance in 2011 of the 25 largest providers of ambulance service. And they had a little $11 million aggregate net profit. And that is a 2% rate of return on gross revenue. A 2% rate of return is not indicative of a healthy industry. 10 of the 25 largest providers incurred a net loss or required some type of supportive or non-transportive revenue funding to operate at a zero net income. The 3 municipalities incurred an aggregate loss of about $3.4 million. The 5 fire districts incurred an aggregate net loss of over $3 million. $3 million is loss to those is a minus 10% of their budget. The $3 million net loss is after obtaining $5.6 million in supportive non-transport revenue funding. Without the $5.6 million supportive funding, the fire district aggregate net loss would have been $8.6 million. And I'm very concerned about the financial situation of the fire district without taking on the additional burden of an ambulance service. It's gone from $5 million surplus to over $1 million in a few years. They take over $100,000 a month from surplus to cover existing costs. The financial accounting for the last few years is lacking, and it appears not being addressed. It now appears they are hanging their financial future on starting an ambulance service. If we're to believe that they can staff an ambulance service 24/7 with 4 people when the fire protection, then service could suffer. A report provided to the Arizona legislature showed that almost all fire districts have to subsidize our ambulance service. Golden Valley is not a rich district and afford the loss of funds to do what their name fire district requires. If I had, as probably all of us, calls from other fire districts and firemen passing on their concerns. One gentleman is a retired fireman and board member from the Pima County Fire District. He said his fire district in Pima County was about the same size as Golden Valley. He just wanted to pass along his department's foray into the ambulance service. He mentioned that when his fire district first got ambulance service, they told him that the same thing they're telling the Golden Valley, that they will be break even or make money off the ambulance within the first year or two. And they are currently having to subsidize $1.4 million today just to keep it running. The idea that money will come rolling in, I believe, is a fallacy. The average fire district that does make money has a 3 to 4 year window before break-even time. The fire districts that claim a profit appear to be hiding costs inside their fire district budgets for fire service. Even billing is a problem. The average appears to be a 45% collection rate on billing. Medicare and Access do not pay the billed amount, and Medicare has a 20% copay which must be collected. The fire district will need a collection agency which takes more money, or employ their own person, which requires additional expense. Medicare has forms which are so complicated that doctors are now opting out of accepting them. Medicare has been bilked out of millions of dollars and are now checking ambulance billings because of problems and have fined companies millions of dollars years after billing mistakes were found. With the district's history of problems with just paying bills on time and filling out Medicare forms and not making mistakes, it could be a reality. The district has done a good job in keeping their tax rate lower than most and not using their line of credit. They need to be commended for that. But it also has been stated the district can increase their tax levy and it will be all right. If they max out the levy, it will only bring in an additional $175,000, really not enough to make any kind of a difference. If they cannot make their budget with current revenues, adding additional responsibility and obligations is a recipe for failure. I'm also curious as to why the fire district has funded a private attorney when they can use our county attorney for free. A specialized attorney in the certificates of necessity is obviously a good idea, but the tens of thousands spent to sit in on meetings and explain open meeting laws appears to be a waste. The district is their own government body, and if the people of Golden Valley want to bet on an ambulance service becoming a moneymaker, that is their decision. But I believe the chances of this happening are slim. If a private party wants to make the bet, it is their money they are wagering. When a fire district does, it's taxpayer money, and the loss could mean the loss not only of the ambulance service, but their fire protection. I do not see the reward, and right now I'm not willing to expand Mohave County taxpayers' money to bail out a district if they do go belly up. That's all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. I will say a few words. I want to reiterate my comments from I think it was last month. It's not the role of the Mohave County Board of Supervisors to serve as a super board, an oversight board. We don't tell the school boards and the fire boards and the other boards what to do. The people who run the Golden Valley Fire District and who make the financial decisions for the Golden Valley Fire District is the Golden Valley Fire District's board, elected board, and the only people they're obligated to account to for their decisions is the voters of the Golden Valley Fire District. My review of the report, and I say this only because I want to make sure that my interpretation is in there, is that the fire district is already paying for the expenses that would be associated, for the most part, with expanding into ambulance service. The fire district is already making the exact same runs. The fire district seems to be in a pretty good position for doing the same work with the same resources to actually generate some revenue from this. Whether this effort will succeed or fail, I don't know. But it seems like it's logical, it's well thought out. The expenses are not going to dramatically increase, and I have to applaud the fire board, as has Supervisor Johnson, for keeping your taxes low and for thinking outside the box and thinking of ways that you can continue to keep your taxes low, and I wish you the best of success with this new endeavor. I will say one other thing about the attorney, and I'm not knocking our county attorney's office, but I spent 8 years on our high school board, and we also employed our own attorney. And that's because, and this is the reality I'll acknowledge as a member of the Board of Supervisors, we probably have not fully staffed our civil department of the Mohave County Attorney Department. And if we asked for legal advice, it was a very long time in coming because there's a big backlog. So if we want to get legal advice, we had to go get it. And so I applaud you for actually wanting to act with the advice of the attorney, and I don't blame you for not waiting for the county attorney to get back to you, and I don't blame the county attorney, because it's more of a funding issue, a staffing issue on our end. But that doesn't change the fact that you need legal advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, board.
Supervisor Moss?
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. April 8th, we called a special meeting and asked our OMB department to do a financial review of the Golden Valley Fire Department. OMB did a very good report, and overall, it looks like the fire department is being financially responsible. Like Supervisor Moss said, they're thinking outside the box. Whether or not there's a con granted or not is not our call. If it is granted, I wish the fire department luck. There's an election coming up. I wish those running for that the best of luck, and I think once that election is held and we have a full fire board and we have a chief trying to do the job, that the citizens get behind the Golden Valley Fire Department and support it. If they don't, I would wish that they would keep their thoughts in their own groups and let the fire department succeed or fail on their own. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop. Supervisor Watson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't. Just very pleased about the report. Wish Chief Donahue great success in this new endeavor.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. Supervisor Angus, anything else? Anything else, Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Seeing that, could I have a motion on item 33, which I believe would be simply acknowledging the acceptance of the OMB's report, that we would take no further action after that?
I make a motion that we accept OMB's report. Thank you. And that we take no other action.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Going on to item 34, discussion and possible action. Ray, authorize Munger Chadwick PLC to continue with legal services as outlined at the March 16, 2050 approval for an additional $50,000 equaling an approved $150,000 total engagement amount, and approve a general fund contingency transfer to General Administration Legal Services 100-01-0500 431.10. Supervisor, I'm promoting you again, or demoting you, depending. County Administrator Hendricks, anything you'd like to say on this item before the board entertains a motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a reminder, Munger Chadwick is representing us in the Planet Ranch case for the severance and transfer of waters from the Planet Ranch to the Big Sandy Aquifer. Currently, we have approved, the board has approved $100,000 for Munger Chadwick. We're up against that ceiling, and oral arguments are coming quickly. I know we're going to surpass that $100,000, and I'm asking the board to increase that to $150,000 total.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board for Supervisor County Administrator Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to accept item number 34.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Going on to item 35, discussion and possible action. Ray, establish an initial trial settlement budget in the amount of $150,000 for Mineral Park, Inc. bankruptcy case and approve a general fund contingency transfer to General Administration Legal Services 100-01-0500-431.10. County Administrator Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwayne Morris, the legal firm, was retained by Mohave County to represent us in the Mineral Park bankruptcy. Originally, we approved a $50,000 fee to try to negotiate a settlement with all parties to protect our interest in the Mineral Park bankruptcy and to try to gain some of the, or most or all of the monies that the Mineral Park property was sold for. We were unsuccessful at that time getting a settlement, and we are going to court on this issue. I'm asking the board to establish an estimated fund of $150,000 to allow us to go to court to cover those expenses for the trial.
Is there any question of the board for County Administrator Hendricks? Seeing none, can I have a motion on item 35 of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Going on to item 36, discussion and possible action. Ray, agreement for legal services and contingent fee agreement with Dwayne Morris LLP in connection with the Mineral Park, Inc. bankruptcy case. Is there any board member who would like to take this item into executive session? Seeing none, may I have a motion on item 36, or do you have any words you'd like to say about this, County Administrator Hendricks?
Yes. We have a proposal from Dwayne Morris to represent us in the bankruptcy trial, and actually the board has two options. One option is to pay estimated the fees and expenses to Dwayne Morris as billed, and then Dwayne Morris submitted an alternate proposal to us to have a be paid and contract with Mohave County on a contingency fee basis. And that contingency fee basis would mean that up to the first $1 million that they would be able to achieve for Mohave County out of the bankruptcy, we would pay them 15% of that gross proceeds. Of the second $1 million that they would be able to achieve for Mohave County, we would pay them 10% of the gross proceeds. And anything thereafter, anything that they could achieve up to a maximum that we estimate could be $7 million, they would receive about, or $8 million, they could receive 5% of the gross proceeds. I want the board to know that anything that's paid to our attorneys would come off the top that Mohave County would gain, and Mohave County would have the remainder and be responsible to distribute percentage-wise to the districts and to Mohave County's general fund. Dwayne Morris is also proposing that if whatever they would be charging Mohave County would be subject to 300% of the total amount that they would be earning based on their fees. Also, I'd like to point out that all costs and expenses incurred by Dwayne Morris, like travel or phone calls or other expenses not associated with direct legal representation, is a responsibility of Mohave County and would be outside this agreement. So in front of the board is, do we want to go to the contingency fee, or do we want to just go on basically a time and materials basis for our contract with Dwayne Morris for representation?
I do have one question, because I saw this, but I want to make sure I'm clear on this, because if I'm interpreting it correctly, I think it is, I give Dwayne Morris credit, they will be keeping track of their time that they bill on this case, regardless of the contingency. And whatever contingency they may ultimately obtain cannot be greater than 3 times their actual work that they perform, assuming they were successful.
Chairman Moss, That's the way I understand their letter of engagement. On
That's
the
what how
contingency
I understood it, and I think Mr. Ekstrom's agreeing with us. And I will tell you that I have, in my 20 years of private practice, I've done the occasional contingency, and I've seen many, many other attorneys with contingencies. And there's always this floating idea out there that, yeah, if we make way, way more than we anticipate, we'll reduce it, but it's always at the discretion and honor of the individual attorney, and I'll leave it that for people to decide, to realize that some are more honorable and exercise more discretion than others. But the fact that they're willing to put that cap in there was actually a good thing, in my opinion.
Question I have, Mr. Chairman. When you're reading that, Mr. Hendricks, we're not, if we go to contingency, we still don't pay travel on those. Are you saying we have to pay travel?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, yes, we would. Travel expenses, long-distance phone calls, they list in their letter of engagement, regardless of if we choose the contingency contract or to pay them for direct costs, we would, all travel or other expenses would be subject to charge and payment by Mohave County.
And if I can clarify that, what they're referring to is the payments to third persons, that they have to buy a hotel room, for example, if they incur an AT&T bill, if they have a filing fee, it's costs and expenses. That's not unusual in contracts. I have no preference which way Mohave County goes on this. I do think this is a more favorable contingency agreement to Mohave County than I was led to believe originally, or at least was presented to us originally. But attorneys passing on the actual costs and expenses to attorneys or to the clients, that's been the way it's been forever. It's just their attorney fee itself, their time, that has been removed from the equation with the contingency.
I guess the other question I would have is, much like with Munger and Chadwick and the rest of them, we start out on a low bid and we continue to go up as time goes by. Does the county have an idea? We're going at 150,000 now, so obviously we'd be cheaper staying there if it ended at 150. Do we have an idea of what we think we're going to incur in costs if we go a year, 2 years in this, or how long it could go?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I'm not in a great position to answer this, but I do have an opinion, and I'd like to ask Bill Ekstrom to weigh in on this after I finish my opinion. In discussion with Dwayne Morris, one of my questions was, is this an appealable issue? And I think that's what you're asking. And they said, on bankruptcy cases, bankruptcies are decided on facts, and generally the facts are presented in the initial trial, and so that generally they're not appealable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this won't be appealable. Obviously it is appealable, everything's appealable, but what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily mean that this won't be appealed. But our hopes is that the trial is, I believe, in July, if I'm not mistaken, and that the decision will be made shortly thereafter on county's portion of the settlement.
Mr. Chairman, just a point, the trial's been postponed until August 11th.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry, that's right.
And maybe postponed beyond that, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of this case in discovery, which is, they're asking questions about what we have in our records. We checked Mineral Park and Bluefish and found more than 5,000 emails that we had to disclose. Somebody has to go through those and read them. It's becoming more and more convoluted.
Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, unless somebody else has some questions, I would float out a motion to see if anybody wants to second it on going with the contingency part, where 150 is what we pay the first million, which is going to cost us 150 the first year anyway. Off our first signing, so that would be mine to go with the contingency.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, can I have a vote on whether we approve the contingency? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. All right, that concludes our regular meeting. We do still have, to be official, Mr. Ekstrom, is there any reason to go into executive session on item number 1 that I kick back to the end of the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending.